Buttons, y'all. Randomly, uniformly, in search of paradise clarity on my break at the job. And I wanted to talk about a song that I've always enjoyed.
Randomly, usually the opposite of uniformity, but the shifts in time form a certain parity. With the gesture of buttons comes clarity.
Mainly for the lyrics, which I'm going to quote and sing for you right now. It's called All the Way to Memphis by Sananda Matria. I fell over backwards when I got the news. She was a friend of many years. I pulled over a back of gravel road somewhere. I'm in the mood to shed my blues. I'm in the mood. 'Cause I left Tallahassee in the rain, and I drove all the night to Georgia. I reached Tennessee before sunrise, and I cried all the way to Memphis. Some fingerprints were lifted from her bedside tray. She never went to work that day. Her killer was a man she met in acting class who cast her in his final play, his foul play. 'Cause I left Tallahassee in the rain, and I drove all the night to Georgia. I reached Tennessee before sunrise, and I cried all the way to Memphis. An apple from the orchard falls onto the ground, and if there are no worms around, the sun will take it and bake it into a rotten core until the seeds are there no more. 'Cause I left Tallahassee in the rain, and I drove all the night to Georgia. I reached Tennessee before sunrise, and I cried all the way to Memphis. Now, Sananda, the one who wrote that song, has claimed that he wrote this song about a man who was in Egypt. He was in Memphis, Egypt. And then he found out a friend of his had died in Memphis, Tennessee. And I remember when I first heard the song, I just really connected to the lyrics, especially that last verse, because of how true it is and very poetically said. An apple from the orchard falls into the ground, and if the worms don't get it first, the sun is going to take it. And it's going to, it could burn to the core until the seeds are there no more. And that has always gotten me like, yo, that's a good reminder. And yeah, it makes you cry from two different spaces, one from Africa and another in the United States of America. So, makes you think. Buttons, y'all. It's randomly, uniformly, in search of paradise clarity. And we're going to talk about this Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef. I'm not sure where I can really end or begin in this conversation. Let's just start with the song Like That. So, Like That came out. Kendrick Lamar says, and this is what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about two primary elements of this whole thing. And that's it. Because everything else, I'm going to leave to y'all. I'm not going to analyze this to the depth of how folks are doing it because I don't even think it's needed. But there are two things I want to talk about. One of them is really a huge conversation that no one is talking about. And I already know by me stepping in and having this conversation, it's going to be like. And then the other thing, maybe something you should consider as well, which is that Michael Jackson and Prince are consistently compared. And when Kendrick said Prince outlived Mike Jack, and when he says, you know, it's the big me, not no big three or whatever, but specifically that line of Prince outlived Mike Jack. Michael Jackson died June 25th, 2009. Prince died April 21st, 2016. So Prince died 7 years after Michael Jackson. And Michael Jackson and Prince have always been compared as two artists being born in the same year, but yet very different from each other. And there was this competitive flair that people created, and I think was real on some level, because both of them were very competitive, but they had different ways of going about music. And it's just insane to me how anyone in the world could compare the two of them together without considering their distinct differences. Sure, there was similarity, but Prince and Michael Jackson were very different. I think it's just interesting how both Michael and Prince are just put in the ring all the time. And I don't think people take the time to listen to either of them. Not even Michael Jackson, even though he has far less albums than Prince. The other thing I want to talk about, and this is the biggest contradiction that I have with this whole beef, and it's not something a lot of people think about, which is that the N-word, I am of the opinion, as an African man living in the United States of America, I am of the opinion no one should use the N-word. And I think the history behind the N-word is not understood correctly. And there have been people who have managed to have some conversation. You can look at what Maya Angelou said, what Oprah tried to do, which she's not a good comparison. I think of someone like Kwame Ture and Sekou Touré, my ideological heroes who understand the condition of what it was like for Africans to be dehumanized. And there is a cultural, historical connection to this word, and it's been aimed to be reclaimed and reframed. And people say, oh, black people can say the N-word because we reclaim that, but let anyone else say the N-word. And it's just like, why are we saying the word anyway? We could just choose not to say the word at all. Like, what positive has this word ever done for us as a people? Like, for real. And I understand, I come from New Orleans, so I was born in New Orleans. I'm around people who say the N-word. I mean, my dad, my family, it was just like off the handle, right? But I had to come into knowledge, or at least when I came into that knowledge, I realized maybe I shouldn't say that word. What's wrong with not saying the N-word, right? That would excuse and take away all this other conversation people are having about the hard ER and the way you're saying it and the context in which it's said, the flavor and all these other things people make. It's a big conversation to have, and there are a lot of people who are going to say the N-word regardless. But I just think one could just be like, yo, what's the point of just saying the N-word and being identified as something that has been used as a dehumanistic tool to devalue us as a people? So those are the two things I've been thinking about: Michael Jackson, Prince, and the N-word, and why people go out of their way to justify it. And I'd rather not listen to it. I'd rather not hear people say it. Now, people don't say it anyway, but think about why you're saying it. Buttons, y'all. Randomly, uniformly, in search of paradise clarity. Shout out to the pimple right there on my nose. But anyways, this is about being blocked, okay? Now, maybe this has happened to you. Maybe you have done it to block somebody. Let's talk about it. So when one is blocked digitally, it means you don't have access to that person. You can't text them. You can't call them. It's like that Black Mirror episode. You know, a person literally blocks you, stops you from contacting them, and they don't see anything you post. You don't see anything they post. You're blocked. I ain't talking about that type of blocked. I'm talking about when you go to a store and it's closed. And it ain't opening again. It ain't starting somewhere else. It's been closed. Thus, blocked. The thing you got from that store, you can't get it no more because the store is closed. Is that such a bad thing? If you look at it like that, I think it helps. Because sometimes when people feel they're blocked, it kind of sucks if you're not expecting it. Now, there are temporary blocks. You might block somebody temporarily, put them on a timestamp. And in that case, you might as well mute them. If you're going to block somebody, that's an indication that you are done. It's like, I'm closed. But if you block them temporarily, and they realize they're blocked, and then they come back and they realize they're not blocked. It's like, oh, you unblocked me. So now you're open? Mixed messages. So you got to be committed to the block. I mean, I think in principle you should. But some people unblock people for various reasons. Maybe they block you because they just don't want to see you. Which, again, this is why people mute others. You can mute or you can even limit what you see and what they see. Limit your engagement audience. You have control, technically. There's some privacy setting that you can correct to your fortune. You don't have to see everything if you don't want to. You can thereby block. But if you unblock, you're basically saying, hey, I was closed, now I'm open. You know? But then if that person comes back and sends you a message and you're like, hey, I thought I blocked them. The store is closed, y'all. That's not such a bad thing. That's all I'm saying in this video. Randomly, uniformly, in search of paradise clarity.